Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to be talking all about PRS Foundation's PPL Momentum Accelerator Fund, which is specifically for artists in our region, in Liverpool City region, which, as I've said before, is an amazing thing to have because it just means that the criteria for that is so small, so there's more of a chance to apply for it. I'm just going to bring John in from PRS. Hi, John.
Hey, Kath, how are you?
Good. So what we're going to do is we're going to chat through the application, who it's for, some hot tips on what to think about when you're applying, different relevant information that is needed that is going to help people make a decision on whether you're ready or not, and whether you're a trusted band or artist to have £5,000 rattling around your pocket. If anyone has got any questions, can you whack them down as well as we go along, which would be really, really great. I know doing it on YouTube makes it quite faceless and a bit weird, but it looks fancy. So we'll just keep it to that. But please do, just any burning questions, don't leave the opportunity to pass of us having John in the room. So yeah, go for it. So John, PRS Foundation's PPL Momentum Fund Accelerator. First of all, where does this fit? Because obviously PRS Foundation have got lots of different funds and are catering to people at lots of different parts of their journey. And there is a that you can go through. Where does the accelerator fit? Tell us a bit more about where it
basically the PPL Momentum Fund is our fund for sort of the next steps music creators. So creators that we feel are at the tipping point of their careers, so they're sort of on the cusp of the first album or having a moment where they could probably go from independent artist to a major signed artist or an artist who has global success. That's been around for about 11 years, and after a 5-year review they kind of realized that there was a lot of regional talent that probably wasn't quite there, that needed a little bit of help because of to capitalize on the barriers for financial regional infrastructure and knowledge and advice that was accessible to people in the region. So we started it with we launched it with Liverpool in 2019, and then since have gone to Wales and Yorkshire as well. So the idea was that it's there to support development, particularly bolster the regional scenes across the UK. So that was the idea. That's why we've created it, and it's been going well, and we've started with looking at other regions as well to introduce it hopefully this year or next year.
So obviously there's the big momentum, and this is kind of leading into that, and then you've got open funds. What kind of career level are you looking for the Momentum Accelerator?
Yeah, so the difference between this and most of the other funds is open to music creators and industry professionals. So, I mean, we're looking at, particularly the music creators, we're looking at people who are obviously, for this one particularly, in the Liverpool City region. They do write and perform their own music. They've had some sort of regional press or a little fan base building in the region, particularly strong evidence of that fan base if you can demonstrate that in your application. And then also that you're making the next steps to moving out of the regional sort of band to become more of a national band. And you've got early interest from maybe professional organizations like labels or management companies, whether they're regional or national, that doesn't matter. And then in regards to the industry professionals, we'll be looking at local industry professionals who are growing a track record and sort of contributing to the local scene particularly. And I've been doing it for at least been doing it for the last 18 months.
Cool. So with regards to the musicians, if you think about we talk about tipping point artists, particularly with the Momentum funds and what that means, it's that kind of last bit of kind of grant before they're sustainable, and they don't need that kind of extra boost from an external source other than a label or a publisher or whatever. What do you think that tipping point looks like for a local artist? Do we still think about it the same way? Is because obviously local tipping points kind of banded around a little bit. What do you think that means for like a local band or artist?
I mean, historically in the past, you've seen artists have done the move to leave their region to come to London to sort of pursue their music career. I think the idea of this fund is to sort of stop that move, and so that you can flourish within your region, and then maybe obviously there will at some point be some move to the capital for whether it's for do shows and stuff like that. We want to try and encourage people to stay in their regions and be able to flourish and make music while they're staying in their regions. I think that's initially if you feel like there's nothing more you can do in your region and you need to sort of branch out and do gigs across the country, or maybe come down to London for networking things, and this is the kind of thing this can support. Unfortunately, like in most countries, the capital city is the place where the music scene is thriving, and you need a little bit of support sometimes financially to be able to go in and make moves with the people that are based in those cities, to be able to then grow as an artist or even as a professional.
Yeah. So thinking about those artists that are doing well at a local level, if you're thinking about like what a successful candidate looks like to receive the funding, what kind of interest would you be expecting them to have, or what should they be demonstrating?
I mean, if they can demonstrate that, I think the first port of call is that it's tough, because you could say it's someone who's selling out shows in their local region, but then it could be someone who's actually like a genuinely solid support act for when bigger acts come to the region. So if you're like, I don't know, like an act who is commonly but is like booked a lot to support bigger acts or international acts when they come to your different regions, then that is a solid. If you've had a lot of local press talking about you, if you have a lot of the BBC introducing in the local region playing you, or the regional stations are playing a lot of your music, then you're definitely at a point where you should be applying for something like this.
I've got a question in from Blue Jean, which is, when you've got interest from a label, how would you write about
that? Well, I mean, obviously, if you've had interest from a label, you tell us who the label is, what level of interest they've had, whether it's just conversation or whether they put a deal on the table. You don't have to give us the specifics of the deal. Just show, and if you've had 3 or 4 people come and speak to you, then it doesn't matter who it is. It could be an independent label, it could be a major label, it could even be a distribution company that's interested in distributing your music. It's more about that there is interest, and there's people within the music industry and business who feel like obviously supporting you is a good business move for them. So it shows that there's some validity in you having growth in your music.
Yeah, definitely. It's that kind of like validation, isn't it? Like a stamp of approval that somebody with good ears and has got some money that they want to invest is going to want to invest in you. And it's that thing as well with labels, isn't it? Like having label interest or having like even a deal. There's so many it's vastly different, all of the different like situations or like relationships, I guess, with labels these days.
Yeah, and particularly the way the music industry's evolved recently. Obviously, the major label deal is more of a like 360 look, where they support you. Like when I say 360, they support you in touring, they support you in your record sales. They might give you some money to help build your brand. They'll do work, but then you get labels that can't afford to. That have got really good infrastructures in terms of releasing music. They can do really good distribution of your physical copies and stuff like that, but they just don't have the budgets to be able to like make you those big budget videos and stuff like that. So particularly if they're the guys that are interested in you, there's no reason you should go with them. But this is particularly for people who have got those kind of, we've sort of primarily fund people that have those kind of like situations where the labels or the publishers don't have the funds to invest so heavily.
Yeah.
So we can add to that as well, helping with your marketing costs and whatever.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I always used to notice is that lots of bands and artists used to get like loans from their labels to support their tours. So they'd like, obviously it's marketing for a record, isn't it? So the label was thinking that's really great advertising that this band's going off on tour, but obviously the cost of touring's getting higher and higher. I don't see that anymore. I don't think I've seen like a label that I would expect to offer tour support, like do it for the last few years anyway.
The tour support situation is an interesting one because they will support you by means of where they feel your record sales are at. Particularly major labels, they'll be like, okay, well, we know you can sell these amount of records, so we're happy to support you with this kind of level of tour support. It means that your band can get paid this amount of money, your tour manager should be on this kind of thing, and that's how they sort of structure it. Whereas there's even like if you do international touring, they won't support you because they feel like you're not there yet to go and do international touring, so you maybe have to find you elsewhere. Or obviously we have a fund called the International Showcase Fund where we help artists who are in a similar situation where the indie labels that can't really support them, so we will help support the costs of that.
Cool. So going back to the accelerator, if we're thinking about an artist that's doing well locally, like it kind of tick the box of like what we've talked about. When you're thinking about like what a successful or a fundable plan looks like what are you seeing as something that's really viable, fundable activity that is likely to kind of like impress a panel of people that know their shit, I guess, know what's what and know what works for artists these days and what doesn't. Like how informed does it need to be if it's kind of like earlier career level artists as well?
I mean, the more information you give the people we bring in to be advisors, the better, because obviously there's a lot of applications we have to go through. So the more information you give us in these little applications that we give, like that's where the portal of where they're going to see you. Occasionally advisors may look at other stuff you guys are doing. They might go onto your websites and stuff like that, but this is a place where you really got their attention because they're going through a few applications. We don't know how long it's taken them to go through it, and like there's no guarantee that people will go and do their research of your music, so you really should put in as much as you can. In regards to what we can support recording and releasing of music, live performance and touring, specifically like only UK based really for this level, high quality and innovative broadcast or pre-recorded content, particularly for online, promotions and marketing. Talking about like PR, radio plug-in, any kind of digital marketing that you might want to do, whether it's like ad spend and stuff like that. Creation of new music and time to create as well. So you can put in factors for you guys to have, let's say you wanted 2 weeks to actually create an album or write with some writing partners and stuff like that, you can put in for that. And then you can also have fees for the people that collaborate with you on your creation of music. We can do educational and training stuff you can be funded for. So let's say there's a course on production that's going to help you deliver the album. There'd be a consideration that we could fund that. And then equipment, we can up to 20% of the budget that you ask for, we can put forward for equipment. Or you can do a combination of everything I've mentioned. Depending on how comprehensive your project is.
Yeah, it's a lot of words to get in the word count if you're going to tick all those boxes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, things that we can't support, just so that everyone's aware, is if you ask for a van or vehicle purchase to help you guys go on tour, we couldn't support that. International touring, we definitely can't support. We can't support if management companies are applying on behalf of one artist, that's fine. We can't support if people are trying to apply for a roster of artists on a management company or an independent production outfit. Can't help you building a studio if that's what you like the cost for, or salary costs or living costs. But we can support in lots of other areas. It's just those that we cannot.
Do you think I've got another question from Blue Jean, which I think is pretty relevant in the sense of like, do you think it's wiser to kind of focus on fewer of those elements Or do you think it does actually kind of benefit if it does cover like more of those bases? Like,
I think it's beneficial to have an idea of what you like, to what you want to fund, what you need help with, because most artists will have several things going on at the same time.
yeah,
They might be recording releases and having a tour to, let's say it's whatever, and if obviously the money's not going to stretch to all of the activities you're doing, then it's best to think on what activity is probably the most beneficial and going to help push your career the most that you want the funding for. That's not to say that you can't mention the other activities, because they're going to just make your case look stronger. The more you look like you've got going on for you, the more likely that advisors are going to be like, do you know what? This has got so much going on, not just this project, but there's a tour going on.
yeah.
Some TV love. They've got loads of radio playlists in. Like, there's no reason we should not support this. So the more you put into your application, even if it's stuff that's not relevant to the actual project, the better.
I think that's really important, isn't it? It's like, I guess you don't want people who are looking at the application to you don't want the application to pose more questions than it answers.
No,
so
that's exactly what you don't want it to.
Looking at it and then going, yeah, that's all well and good that they want that money for that, but then how is that supported in other areas?
Sure.
Because I guess the way that, go on.
It's all kind of relative. Like, obviously you release music and you hope that after music you'll get loads of streams or you'll get loads of purchases. Then you'll go touring, and it's an endless cycle that you just want to continue. And you obviously, for me, particularly nowadays, catalog is key. So you always want to be recording and making new music for your fan base to continue to grow. And then as you get new fans, they might like a song, and then they've got a whole catalog to listen to afterwards as well. And then also, there's so many other factors, like having a visual presence, having music videos, having your social media. You're always going to have to make content for that, whether it's content that you can make on a low budget or content that you want to spend a bit of money on. You never know. If you've got a great idea for stuff, you should always try and invest in it, because it could be something that really helps build your brand. It's very hard to say, like, should we pinpoint? Like, I think, yes, if you've got one project you really want to pinpoint and you feel like, yes, I want to record this album, I've got a great idea for it, or this EP, I've got a great idea for it, I really want to make sure I get the best people involved, and that's going to cost me this amount of money, then but then also talk about the other stuff going on, so that we know, okay, there's not just an album here that they just want to release into the atmosphere and just see what it does. There's actually other stuff in place. And also talk about people that support you, team members. If you've got a booking agent, if you've got people that give you help, like if you've got a recording studio that the guy who runs it just loves your music and said, you know what, I'd really like to come and record it whenever you've got time. Let us know that there's people that support you beyond just having that you pay for them. Like, there might be people that, I've had some applications where I've seen people getting up to like 50 grand worth of in-kind support, where it's like people that just really believe in them and saying, use my space for free, and stuff like that. And it shows everyone who's going to assess the applications that there's real belief in your music as well.
I guess as well with the panel, they're mostly going to be local professionals, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to know the people 9 times out of 10 that are giving their services for free, or providing that space in order to create, or putting them on those bills. So they know the ecosystem of the Liverpool music scene, don't they? So they're going to have an appreciation that they've got really good ears. They're a trusted person. They've done that for me in the past. Yeah. So it just kind of that picture, doesn't it?
That's the thing as well. When you write applications and you name things and you put down, I'm using this service and stuff like that. If it's a service that advisors have used or trust, and then obviously it gives you another bit of validation in what you're doing, because they're like, okay, they know what they're doing because they're using this distribution service, or they're using this mix engineer who's done X, Y, and Z, and this promoter is supporting their live shows. So they must have a bit of a buzz, because this promoter obviously is a business and this is what they do for a living. So
I think on the other side of that as well, though, you can tell when someone's plucked something out of thin air too. you know, like where they've like either like listed publications as targets and you just like your music would not suit those publications. Like, you know, the assessors are like the people that are looking at the application that have an idea of like where they would place that music and who they think would support it as well. So I think there's another kind of like doing your homework around kind of what you're putting in there as well. Like it's great to put like puts me, but then, you know, for over the next year, I'd like this promoter to book me. I'd like this festival to book me. I'd like to be in these publications, and they just don't make any sense.
Yeah, like that's crucial as well. That's one thing where a lot of applications fall down in is the information that's given doesn't really line up with the sound of the music sometimes, or the direction that you feel that the artist is actually trying to go in. It's key for you to do a bit of research and work out things. I mean, sometimes I've seen advisors sort of shoot down applications because the costs that they've put down for touring just doesn't make sense. You know that it doesn't cost that little to go to this country, or this journey to Scotland is not going to cost that little amount of money, or do you know what I mean? Especially for a band of 6. So and where did they pick up these accommodation costs from? Because we know that if we stay in Edinburgh, the hotels aren't cheap. So it's like,
tell me where you've got those costs from. I want them.
So it's like, we have got, our advisors are knowledgeable. They're people that are in the music industry. A lot of them have been in the music industry a long time. They've been multifaceted. They've worked in live, they've worked in record labels, they've worked in marketing. So they will not be, they will know when you've done your research, and they'll be happy to support you when you've done your research.
Yeah, and I think that it's just showing that you're safe with that money, isn't it? Like if you've done the work and gone, this is how much these things cost, and I'm confident based on this plan that this is going to get me somewhere, like you're more likely to think that person is a trusted person for me to give £5,000 to. Like it is a lot. I mean,
some people take, if you're working full time, it can take you 2.5, 3 months to make £5,000. So this application, although it is a bit long-winded, it's maybe like half a day's worth of like thinking and planning out, and the reward could be you could get £5,000 for a day of actually sitting down and working out what you need to do.
Absolutely. I've got some questions, but they're in a bit of a weird order, so I'm just going to move them around. So George has asked, can you use some of the money to pay for session musicians and band fees for gigs?
Yes, you can, as long as those gigs are UK based.
Yeah, brilliant. I've got a question from David, which I'm actually kind of intrigued to hear what your answer is to this. Like, what about styling or clothing, etc.? Would that be covered as something that you would see as something that was fundable?
Now, the thing about that kind of thing, it is to a degree, but there has to be an element of music creation in what we fund. So you could say, okay, I've got a stylist that I want to bring in for, I don't know, for 3 shoots, and they're going to cost me X, Y, and Z. That's fine, as long as some of the money that you're asking for is also covering, the recording of the record that you're doing these shoots for. Or so, as long as there is some sort of music creation involved in the funding, like you wouldn't be able to just be like, I want to buy $5,000 on a stylist, because number one, that would be an obscene thing to do when you're still trying to make music. And then also, like, it's like something that you would do if you're on a major label, but then the budget for the whole project would probably be 500,000. So it's not.
I guess it's like how integral is it to the success of the project? And I
mean, look, if you're an artist who's like very visually, aesthetically and visually, you've got a lot to like. That's part of your story. Then there's no reason why you shouldn't put that in, because some artists are just like that. Like someone like Tyler, the Creator, he's just, everything that he does visually is always very exciting and sort of enhances all his records. So if you're a kind of artist that really lends on, particularly if you lend on the styling for your music video or your social media, or your live show has like an element where it's really visual, then you've got a justified case of adding it in there. It's just how integral is it, and how, like, obviously the recording of the music and the releasing of the music is more key than you looking as stylish as you can.
That was excellently answered. Moving on, this is something that I really, really wanted to cover, particularly with, like, in relation to some of the artists that I've spoke to recently. So Linsky says, if you're at a point where you think you're probably just below the level that you're looking for, would you recommend still applying? And then again next year, basically. So is it worth still putting that application in if you're a little bit lower than?
Do you know, there's an answer to this that might be a bit, I wouldn't say controversial, but like, I would apply. If you're saying you're only a little bit, then maybe you are at the level, but you just don't think you are. But then I would say it's also great practice, because I'll be honest with you, not everyone gets funded with their first application. It can take up to 2 or 3. Before I joined PRS Foundation, I've been quite successful in applying for PRS Foundation grants for artists that I worked with back in the day, and I had quite a high success rate. But initially, my success rates weren't great. It's only after I sort of got the idea of how you write grants, like sort of I sort of learned from every time I got rejected and sort of spoke to people. And I also worked for a talent development company where I got to learn a bit more as well. So then after that, I was quite prolific, and it was mainly because it's the practice of writing grants. It's like anything. Practice guitar every day. At some point, you'll be really great.
I think exactly the same. Like the first time that I'd started like putting applications in on behalf of artists, it's horrible that it's horrible, but it's really good that you can still see them in your, like, in the portal, that you can see the kind of applications that you put in at first, because I read one of those back not that long ago and it was absolutely shocking. Like, it was so bad. And I remember at the time just being like, well, they're obviously just going to get funded. They're obviously at the right time, and this is a really good application. And then I read it back and was just like, oh my God, like, who did I think I was kidding with that? And then obviously, like, since then I've worked with artists that have been successfully funded. But like, yeah, it's practicing really as well, isn't it? Like, and maybe with this particular fund, with the fact that the criteria is so shrunk into a region, that it's not going to be as competitive as some of the national funds, like, surely. So you don't know what level the other artists are at either that are applying.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that it's, like I said, very rarely do people get it first time. You'll find that most people who've applied have had 3 or 4 attempts. And the other thing as well is that I find that I've met artists who applied for funding and they've been like, I'm never going to apply for funding again because I've been rejected 3 times. And I'm like, but you at the right level now. Like, this is the time you should be applying, and you've actually had the experience of writing an application. But and you should be better at it. So why would you not? But it's just like, because of the time it takes sometimes and stuff like that. But it's one of those things that, like, it's a grant at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to help you. And I've seen artists release albums off with using some grant money, and they're actually relieved that they haven't got the extra cost of, oh, I've got to recoup this now, because it was a grant that helped me produce this album, and now I've managed to sustain a career off the fact that I got a grant that helped pay for everything. Well, not everything, but some of it. And then I had to recoup as not as much money, and now I'm actually now in a position where I'm actually a profit. Whereas it's very hard to release music and be at a profit unless you have songs that really do connect and do as well as million streams a month and stuff like that. It's really hard.
Do you think there's a sway, like, towards, like, what is ideally like a good application with regards to what's being asked for, like whether it's recording or whether it's marketing for releases? Because I guess with, like, if you're putting in an application for recording, then you might not have that kind of like set in stone.
I don't think there's a sway towards it. I think there's more of a. I don't think there's a sway. I think there's more of does it sound like it's a project that is, like, it's more compared to other applicants. Like, does this project feel like it's like the right use of the money?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I think it is. It's like, okay, you've got this going on. So let's say you've got, I don't know, you've had success with your first EP, it's done really well, and you say in your application, I've got loads of fans who want me to release another EP, but then you say, but I want to spend money on touring. Well,
Yeah.
the demand is for you to release more music. So why would you not ask for that?
Mm-hmm.
That's I think what we're looking for. We're
It's
looking
got to
for,
add up.
yeah, it's got to add up. It's got to make sense to where you're at in your career. And yeah, you could, like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't tour, but I'm saying if you've got like 300 tweets from fans saying, when's your next EP coming out?
Yeah.
Then obviously that's where you should be getting the funding for, because that's the demand. You guys, at the end of the day, if you're trying to make a career out of music, it's got to be to supply and demand. Do you know what I mean? You've got to supply what demand is.
I think there's a self-awareness there, isn't there, that has to be demonstrated. Is that, like, you've got to put across that you appreciate where you're at and you appreciate like what's being asked of you and like how you're delivering and where you're putting yourself. Like, it is just a kind of being able to like be aware of like what it is that you need to do and where you need to be, I guess, I think is what I'm trying to say.
And if you feel like you're struggling with that, try it. That's why you need to partner up with maybe like a manager, or even have someone who's like, knows their business, and say, look, this is where I'm at. Where do you feel like I should go with this? I mean, even when I haven't worked with managing artists before I got this job, I was a consultant for people who didn't have managers, who used to just say to me, I know you know what you're doing. Where do you think I should do with this? And I would give them advice. Whether they took it or not was nice in, but obviously I've given them the best advice, because I've been, back when I was younger, I was in the musician stage. I sort of realized quite quickly that I was really good at the business stuff, and all of my friends weren't. They've gone on to be like incredible musicians and stuff like that. But it was like to see like them do things. I'd be like, why are you doing that for? And they'd be like, oh, because I just want to release music. And I'd be like, but you can do this, and this would probably, and then you'd see them do it like maybe 5 years later, and just be like, well, I did tell you so. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I get it. As a creative, sometimes creatives don't see what they need to see. So maybe find that person. Like, I'll give you an example. Brent Fires, the R&B artist from America, he has his manager's his business partner. So they're actually 50-50. And basically the whole day is Brent says, I make the music, my manager does the business. And basically I lean on him for ideas for how do I release my music. And he says, well, you've got the creative, you go and do that. So being an artist is, I think a lot of artists want to do it like by themselves, but unfortunately you can become such a big artist that you do need a team around you, and sometimes you're not that good at the thing you think you're good at. And the best thing for you to do is find someone that's really good at that you trust, and then you will probably fly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just really difficult to find those people, isn't it? Like, especially when you're not.
It's not easy, and there's examples of artists that have taken years to get into those positions. And to name a few, Pharrell took 15 years before he started making like real inroads in the music industry. You've got other people, Rick Ross, he was another person and you've got loads of examples of artists who they didn't really hit until they got on later in life, because they always had the talent, they just didn't have the infrastructure to make it as they could have made it. Do you know what I mean? Even like Little Sims took a very long time to get to where she was. I remember seeing her performing at a youth centre in Shoreditch at least 10 years before her first album went out.
Yeah. I saw a good while before that debut record dropped as well. I can't remember when it was. It was just like that has taken so long. But
even Mahalia, I've been aware of her since she was 15, and that was a good 12 years ago. So,
wow. Right, I've got some questions. Christy is asking, is there a limit to applying for funding through PRS? For example, if you apply for this and aren't successful, can you still apply to others, such as the Women Make Music?
Right. If you apply for this and you aren't successful, yes, by any means you can apply for the Open Fund for Music Creators or Women Make Music. If you have been awarded funding, we ask that you don't go for more funding until you've finished with your grant. So particularly with this one, I think we ask for you to complete the activities within 12 months. So if you were awarded this fund, which I believe the decision date is around mid-March, then we would ask that you wouldn't apply until mid-March next year, unless if you finish the project earlier than you set than the 12 months and you submit your evaluations. If you're an awarded grantee, then by any means apply for any of the grants that you feel suit. But we would rather not have people having 3 or 4 grants going at the same time, except for if you're applying for the International Showcase Fund because you've been invited to one of the international showcases.
But if you aren't successful, then there's nothing to stop you from applying to the others.
But just remember that each different funds have different limitations on how many times you can apply in a calendar year.
So just like have a
If
look
you
on
go to the website, all the guidance for each fund is on their pages. So sorry, I can't remember all of them, but they're
How dare you have not memorized all of those different bits. And then a question from Matthew. I've just realized if I scroll over it, I can't see it. If contacting key people for your budget, so for example, like a video director or a DOP or a producer or an engineer, and having them on board the project is dependent on the funding, would you include them in your interested parties list?
Yeah. The reason I would do that as well is because you could have the project. Obviously, we can't fund 100% of the projects, so we're expecting the project to go ahead regardless of our funding input or not. So if it shows that it will enhance the project, then 100% put everyone involved. If they're saying if they've outpriced themselves because you haven't got the budget, but then you say you getting the fund will get this person to get on board, then 100% do let us know that. Be as transparent about that as possible. Like you can, like obviously we're not expecting if you said, oh, the fund, if I don't get this fund, I won't be able to do any of this activity, then that would be a bit of a red flag for us. But if you say that obviously it's going to enhance my project by adding this video director or this PR agent who's really good, but I just can't afford them, then 100% do add that. That in.
You've got to name them, haven't you? Because like if you're asking for funds to help that area, and then you're not telling you like who it is that's going to do it, that's a red flag, isn't it? Because you're just like, where's that money?
Because we don't believe you've done your research. That's another thing.
Absolutely.
Well, we don't like, and that's the key. We want you to be as informed. Like if we're giving you although it's a grant, it's an investment. We're investing in the future of UK music, so we want to trust that everyone we're invested in is going to do their due diligence and perform. So that's the idea.
This segues very nicely onto my next question. That's very like TV presenter, that wasn't it? That wasn't. So thinking about like you just said about the fact that you'd like the activities to happen whether the funding came through regardless, so that you're not kind of like, right, okay, if I don't get this funding, stand still, nothing's going to happen with this project, can't move forward. So one of the questions that I've had a few times over the last few months just around funding in general, it'd be really good to kind of get your guidance specifically for this one, is like how much are you expecting the artists and the bands to actually like have in the kitty already, or like is there a sweet spot of percentage of like what they're like, how much of their overall project that the Accelerator Fund can cover?
There isn't a sweet spot, unfortunately. It's at the advisor's discretion to like. We've had applications for different funds where we've awarded people that are only putting in £200, and that's just because the rest of the plan was really strong. If you can demonstrate a really strong plan, show that you've researched, and show that your budget is solid in terms of like it makes sense and it's researched in terms of, a lot of people think because the budget section in the application has got like a small description part, they don't want to put much in, but I would say put as much as you can in there. Let us know individually how much things are going to cost. Like let us know, okay, each musician is going to cost me 150. My tour manager, like let us know like in the description box that, and then total it up and put it in the thing. The more information you give us in regards to that, the stronger we feel the application. Now, we can't fund, if you're asking for 100% of the cost, we can't fund it. But even if it's a vast majority, we can, but at least we know that there is some support there, either it's from the artist's own savings, or they've got independent label that's given them a few £1,000s to help with like marketing, or it's more a case of like I said, it's just to show the validity. There is some investment in there. It's not just relying on us to give you the full money. It's got to be that we're not the only people that believe in you, whether it's in kind or in a monetary way, like a label, or like even if you've got a headline show in your regional town, and let's say SJM, one of the regional promoters, is saying, right, we're going to give you a guaranteed fee of £1,000. We're expecting you to sell out this venue for 300 capacity, and you should be able to. But at the end, if we sell it out, you should get an extra £1,000 on top. Like they're trusting you're going to sell that, so they're giving you £1,000 guaranteed fee. And that's that's the kind of like investment we want to see. Like we want to see people are supporting you, or you're backing yourself by putting some money in.
One of the things that I always see as a bit of a missed opportunity is when bands are doing shows and they haven't got merch. Like, do you think like putting stuff like that in, is that enough to kind of lift that side of things, do you think? Whether it's like
but what I would say with merch is, if you can demonstrate that you've had success with merch in the past, do that. Let us know, and don't be scared to say in your application, okay, I sold 50 pieces of merch last year. I'm intending to sell 100 this year. It's not an unrealistic amount. If you said to me, I'm going to sell 3,000, I'd be like, okay, like maybe, but that's a punt. So I would say like just I'm happy for you to show progression. I'm sure the advisors want to see progression as well, but not like, I mean, I might be completely wrong, and you might make a piece of merch that goes completely that becomes a fashion accessory, and then everyone wants to have it. So, but yeah, I'm going to be a bit more realistic and be like, okay, you've sold 100. You're now saying you're going to. You sold 50. Now you're going to sell 100 pieces. That's double your income. Okay, cool. I get it. Like, cool. It's like. Yeah, I know you do get some acts that do end up doing phenomenal out of nowhere, but that's really like once in a blue moon.
I think Idols are always a really good example of that, but wasn't that because like Joe, the singer, used to work for a t-shirt printing company?
Yeah,
and just like.
And you can also lean on if you've got like I've done that as well. I've worked with artists whose mate makes t-shirts, and they just got them to do that. And boom, we've got a t-shirt line just for costs, because the guy said, well, he's my mate, I'm going to give it to him for costs. So like, it cost me £3 to print a t-shirt. You can have it, and then just pay for the garment and the printing. So, and then you're making like a £6 profit on it. And it's like, if you went for a proper company, you probably only make £3 profit on it. So it's like, that's what I mean. Demonstrate, or even if you've got like cheat codes, demonstrate them, so that we know that there's like, again, that's another form of validation and support, because people believe in you enough to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you need to include a contingency in the budget?
Yes, you do. At least 10%. In case, you never know, it might cost you more to put those hotels in Edinburgh. There might be a surge in the prices.
Yeah, I think safety net, isn't it? It's always thinking that something might change costs.
Yeah,
something might pop up.
And it's practice that every business does. So if you're considering your music career as a business, you've got to take the principles that every business in the world takes, which is, okay, here's a contingency in case it costs us more to deliver this product.
Yeah, I think it's like not something that doesn't have to always be like construed as being, well, a cost might get higher, or like something bad might happen kind of thing. It could be that like an opportunity presents itself, and that you haven't got the budget to go and do it, which could
like you could. Let's say you guys are doing really well, and then the booker from Jules Holland sees you, and they're like, do you know what? I've shown Jules this, and they want to get you on the show. Can you come to London in 3 days' time? and you're like, how am I going to get to London with my band? Oh, we need to hire a tour manager. Oh, I've got a contingency to do that. I've got £400 there. Here you go. Take us to London. We'll do Jules Holland and we're good. Like, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. How much do you think, with like people putting across their projects and like this particular bit of activity in an application so that it makes sense, so that somebody that doesn't know their project can kind of jump in it and have a really decent understanding? Do you think it needs to be like, do you think you need to kind of, how much do you need to go into the future with what your aspirations are with your project, like how you see it growing, and how measurable do you think targets need to be? That was 2 questions in one then, sorry.
I think in regards to targets and measurable, I think it's within the next 12 months. How far do you see yourself going in 12 months' time? Because our grant is we're asking you to complete the project within 12 months. You can demonstrate a little bit further along if you feel like it's key to show us how important your plan is. But I definitely feel like we're expecting it to take you for this. We wanted to complete this project within 12 months. We want to see the growth. So I mean, even in the evaluations, we ask you, okay, particularly where's your socials and your streams then, and where are they now, and is there been a significant growth, and is this one you anticipated? So and if it's more than that, incredible, fantastic. But yeah, kind of 12 months, because like with Accelerator, like it is the incubator almost for Momentum. So we're not expecting, like, Momentum is where we get you to come in, we're giving you money for you, the tipping point. We're not expecting you to want to need funding again, because this is supposed to be it, and you're supposed to go over and become, you know, hopefully the international or national music powerhouse. And then with Accelerator, this is a stepping stone. So we do expect you to come back, and we're quite keen to support people that we've supported fund to fund. So if you come in for Accelerator and then you've got a project that we feel like open fund for music creators or women make music makes sense for, then we've already supported you. We know that you're good with our funding money because you did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Evaluation came back really well, and it helped progress you. Okay. And then after that, you used Women Make Music or Open Fund for Music Creators, and then again, growth, everything did. You're now at the tipping point, then apply for Momentum. And that's the idea. It's like, we're not shy to support people that have been through our funding grants. And that's the idea, is that we're not expecting Accelerator to, sometimes you do get that where people go off to, and then after Accelerator go on and they don't need funding anymore. But that's the reason we created it, as it's obviously, we noticed there was a gap between regional artists being able to get to the tipping point.
So it really is kind of like capturing the journey of, like, you might not really know what's next, or like whether you want to work with a label, or I guess it's giving you the options, or like, you know, more time with some more money to kind of decide what that project's going to really kind of flourish into.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is that we're in a place now where the major label is just an option. It's not the destination. Back in the day, it was the destination. Now it's an option. So if you're an artist who's not sure what you want to do, and then you get artists who change their perspective and be like, I don't want to be signed to a major. And then 5 years into their career, they're like, do you know what? I feel like if I was with a major, it might take me to where I really want to go.
Yeah.
So it's like, it allows you, hopefully if you get a fund like this, it will allow you time to think about your direction and not make such a hasty decision into, yes, I need to get signed because I want to do this and I want to do that. And you'll find that the artists who take their time usually have a longer career.
I'd hope so. Yeah. And it's that thing as well, isn't it, where like there's still people that will sign a shit deal with a publisher or with a label because it gives them a few grand and they're just doing it for that money. Whereas having
or even the look. I've worked with people who've signed a deal because it sounded great that they got a publishing deal, but I was like, but they're not offering you an advance. And they're like, yeah, but it's the look. And I'm like, Yeah, but it just looks like it doesn't look good on your bank account.
No, not at all.
Yes.
Another question: how long does it take for the decision to be made?
Usually around 8 weeks after the deadline. So the decision will be made about mid-March. We actually come to Liverpool for a panel after we've gone through and shortlisted all the applications. So the decision will be made in the Liverpool City region.
In the Liverpool City region, that's correct.
Yes.
Not in Liverpool. No, we're doing it at Future Yards just for.
So yeah, and then we will. It will be you will know around mid-March if you've been successful. We also will let the people who haven't been successful know, and then we tell the world around about 4 weeks after we've let you know.
So it's pretty quick turnaround on this one.
Yeah.
So.
And in regards to there being future, we're confident there will be, but I just have to speak to our partners about having another round towards the end of summer.
All right. So looking at another one for this year.
Yes.
So if you're not successful with this one, you can put in for the next one if it happens. Good. Right. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, which is a little bit separate from the application, is just around like the other benefits that you get from being a PRSF supported artist with regards to kind of like showcases and stuff like that. To know that like the stage is different showcases, isn't there? And they kind of look towards who they've supported.
Yeah. In-house, we have PRS Presents, which is something we work on with PRS Foundation. Actually, work with PRS as a sort of a joint venture where we sort of like we'll have a lot of artists who have been grantees who perform. They're generally in London, but they could be anywhere across the country depending on what we're doing. There are other opportunities, but unfortunately right now I'm not sure where they're going to be because we're still in the process of speaking to the different festivals and conferences and that we run. But yeah, we are quite keen to showcase live the artists we support. And also, like, if you do get invited to the international festivals like Eurosonic, even South by Southwest and Reeperbahn, then do hit us up about the International Showcase Fund because we like to support people that we've granted awards to as well in that. And we support those International Showcase Fund primarily support like the costs of going to these places. So like a lot of them have got like really extensive visa costs and stuff like that. So we like you get support in that area as well.
Cool. George has asked, do a couple of different artists receive the funding or just one? Good question.
When you say so, we can support bands. We can support.
No, how many people are like funded at the same? Is it just one winner, like kind of thing?
So there's usually 4 music creators each round that's supported, and then I believe it's 5. It's 5 music industry professionals.
So it's 4 of the 5K music creators.
Yeah, 4 or 5K music creators, and then 5 £1,000 industry professionals that we support.
Cool. If anyone's got any more questions, we've only got 5 minutes left, so just whack them in the chat. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that I want to know of what's come up in the last couple of conversations that I've had.
And also as well, we look to support one Liverpool City region artist and PPL Momentum a year. That's one of the strategic plans as well. Yeah. Hopefully more, but definitely one.
At least one. Right. I don't think anyone's got any more questions. I think I'm pretty dry now. I think I've like asked everything that I wanted to know. But is there anything else that you want to add, John? That we've made?
No, apart from the deadline is on the 31st of January at 6 o'clock. we will be letting everyone know on socials, and I'll reach out to Future Yard and their networks as well when we have another round opening. I'm hoping to get that all tied up quite soon, but I can't say anything until I know what's going on. But yeah.
Can I squeeze one more question in from Tonya?
Sure.
If a label is helping fund the creation of the music, but you need extra help for tour support and marketing, it's still okay to apply, isn't it?
Yes, as long as you're not signed to a major label.
There we go. Brilliant.
Because a major label should be able to help you with all of those things.
You'd hope, wouldn't you? That's great. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Thank you so much, John, for all of the information. If anybody does want help putting their applications together, I have like blocked out a load of 90-minute sessions over the course of the month, which you can just book onto through the Propeller platform. And if anybody wants their applications read, do the same thing. Thank you very much. Yeah. Good luck, everybody, with your applications. Cheers, John.
Good luck. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.